I'm going to try to project my voice. Can you all hear me in the back? Yes. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Margaret Puckett. I'm the new VP of Acquisition for Toll Brothers in Charlotte. And first and foremost, I want to say thank you for being here tonight. I recognize that most of us in this room would rather be home with our families on a Wednesday evening than listen to a home builder talk about a proposed project. However, I also understand that you're here because you're concerned about a development that we're proposing in your neighborhood. You're proud of the Weddington community, and rightfully so. You built a life here, you care about its character, its safety, and its future. And that's not something I take lightly or anybody in this room takes lightly. So that's frankly why we're here. The purpose of a community meeting, and you may have been at others, is to have an open dialogue between the home builder and the community. We're here to provide our vision for the proposed development, but we're also here to hear your concerns and to answer your questions. I won't pretend the process is perfect. When you have a room full of people, I recognize we're going to get a lot of questions thrown at us tonight, and you've got every right to ask those hard questions, and I welcome them, but what I do ask is that you're respectful of our team. We're going to try to get through our presentation in a timely fashion, and then we're going to open it up to questions. One personal note about me is God's blessed me with many, many things in my life, but good ears is not one of them. I wear hearing aids in both of my ears, so if you have a question, one thing I'm going to ask is that raise your hand, you ask it, speak clearly so that we can address it appropriately. Sidebar conversations are not helpful in these meetings. We will be in and out faster. We do one at a time. The person next to you might ask the same question that you've got on your mind. So if that's the only ask that I have, we'll get started with the presentation and address the questions and concerns afterwards. Sign-in sheet is there. Please sign in if you did not as you came in. We'll pass those sheets around. My card is there as well. So if there's something that does not get addressed tonight or questions or lingering something, please reach out. I will try to find an answer for you. With that, I'm going to get started. We have a all right. Here tonight, we've got members of the Toll Brothers team. Like I said, I'm Margaret. We've got some teammates here that are here to address your questions. You'll hear from our VP of Development, Robert, in addition to others in the room that can help address questions. We've also got our engineering consultants that are listed on this slide. This is the site location. I assume that most of you know where this project is, or proposed project is. It is on Weddington Matthews Road with the neighborhoods that are adjacent. We've highlighted those so you can see where they are. A lot of you are neighbors in this community. You know exactly where we are. The site is currently zoned RCD residential, the site is zoned RCD residential conditional, and our proposed zoning that we would like to achieve is RCD CZ, a traditional residential development to allow the development of the site with 45 single-family dwelling units. This is the Weddington Comprehensive Plan. This plan shows recommendation for this type of residential use in this area. And from here, I'm actually going to turn it over to Robert, and Robert's going to take it from here.
Thank you, Margaret. So like Margaret said, this is a development that's 45 lots. The total acres for the 45 lots is 94 acres. It divides between, as we talked about before, Weddington Matthews Road, where you have 20 acres to the west, and you have another 74 acres to the east. What you'll see here, this development is going through from a standpoint of having septic individual lots for each home site. There's a total open space of 33.2 acres. The average lot size for each lot is over 1.03 acres. So, as I mentioned before, we have done evaluation based on individual lot septic systems. This kind of gives you a general sense of what we're proposing here and the evaluation that we've done today. If you go back here and you kind of look at what the legend shows today, it gives you a general sense based on 10,000 square feet and or 16,000 square feet. our approach is based on doing it from a conventional perspective. So if it's 16,000, we would do the conventional. If it's 10,000 or relative about 10,000, our approach is based on engineered septic systems. The other thing that we've done through all of our due diligence, we've gone back and we've done tree survey. The ordinance relative to the town of Weddington has changed in recent times, and their ordinance kind of suggests they're trying to go ahead and salvage heritage trees that are 30 inches or greater. So based on our survey, it's gone back and it's identified 5 different trees that qualify within that ordinance. These dots that you see here qualify where those trees are. So in this case, we would either salvage those trees and or we would go back in and do a mitigation plan with the town of Weddington. So in that same conversation, it's our intent to go ahead and try to keep as many trees as we can, even if they don't qualify within that 30-inch caliber size for the heritage tree ordinance. So if you look closely, you can kind of see some smudges on the plans. The smudges kind of indicate where existing trees are today. This approach that you see here will be how we will move from a development perspective. We will move forward of just addressing right-of-ways and salvaging trees that are outside of that right-of-way. And then when we move forward relative to the plan that you saw before, where we had the individual 45 lots, we will then come back in at the time that we start doing vertical construction and start individually clearing each home site. So the other thing that we've done through our due diligence is we've done a traffic improvement study. It has to go through 2 different reviews. The first review then goes to the town of Weddington, and the other review goes to the NCDOT. So this will kind of give you a general sense of what that looks like and some of the requirements. So as you saw before, we're subdivided based on Weddington Matthews Road to the east and to the west. Larger parcel, which you saw before, is what you see that's to the east. What came back from the requirements from our review was showing that we have to have an ingress and an egress on both sides of the road. And there also is, going on the southbound, there is a left turn lane that goes into the larger portion of that parcel, and it's relative to about 100-foot storage. So anything that you see on this plan that's kind of north or south of our development, stay constant and stay consistent as they are today. Meaning the light doesn't change, the roundabout does not change. Improvements are only applicable relative to where our development limits are. I'm gonna turn it back over to Morgan.
Toll Brothers' approach is unique. Distinctive architecture, unrivaled choice, extraordinary customer service for our homeowners in prestigious locations. Toll Brothers has built many homes in Weddington and in Marvin, and in other municipalities similar. We offer multiple options, interior and exterior, in our homes. If you go to the next slide, we wanted to really pull out and highlight the combinations from an architectural standpoint that are possible with the design of a Toll Brothers home. And you can see here that there's over 6,000 new options that can be put into these homes. In the community itself, there'll be a minimum of 6 floor plans, a minimum of 18 elevations, minimum of 20 color schemes. Overall, combining, you could have 225 different combinations of homes on the exterior for 45 home sites. We recognize that previous communities of recent in Weddington did not meet that expectation, and we're aware of making that change, and we've heard the feedback from previous experiences in the community. And on the interior, we offer over 17 upgrades, or 1,700 upgrades on the interior, from signature plumbing fixtures and baths. Exterior, you can see pools, exterior water features, in addition to really unique staircases, features of such. Really, if you're gonna build a Toll Brothers home, you have a lot of optionality to make it unique and custom.
Yeah, so kind of picking up on the concept relative to the site plan, one of the things that you'd saw before is we're going back in and we're actually, one of the new change ordinances, there's a 100-foot buffer that provides on both sides of Weddington Matthews Road. And that's gonna look relative, like you see the concept here, where it will obviously be inundated with different landscaping that resides on both sides. One of the things that we will also offer up will be a monumentation that's kind of similar to what you've seen in this area as well. A grand scale, which then will have the hardscape as well as softscape. And this just kind of gives you a general sense of what Margaret was touching on before relative to homes that are somewhere, relative to like 6,000, 5,000 square feet. These are just some imageries of those that we would propose and bring into this community. And again, going back on some of the features that we do offer pools, and this just kind of gives you a general sense of some of those pools that we potentially would offer. And that's pretty much it, kind of straight to the point. We wanted to open it up for questions as well that you might have concerning what you just heard.
Yeah, I got one.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, we live in Harbor Oaks, which is a very small neighborhood. 9 of the 10 homes are on Bonner Drive, which I saw in the earlier one.
Yes.
The question that we've received from virtually everybody in our neighborhood in the short time we've had this information
Sure.
file, are they gonna cut our cul-de-sac through? And it appeared on one of those that is indeed the case. It is a very narrow road as it is. If anybody parks on the road, it's essentially a single lane road.
Right.
Which causes us problem as is, but cutting it through so more traffic flows through that tiny neighborhood is definitely a concern for us.
Sure. Yeah, and we can speak to that, and then we have our experts here as well that can kind of let you understand those comments that keep come back from NCDOT as well as from the town. You want to maybe expand on some of the rationale behind why we're tying into Bonner Road?
Yep, so big picture, in the traffic analysis, we did account for a connection to Bonner Road, sorry. And that was kind of a recommendation from the town, something that we're looking to see. So is it something that you guys are really opposed to? We need to have a conversation.
Yeah,
with them.
we are definitely opposed to that. So what was the recommendation based on?
So you want to kind of just give a typical circumstance relative to how you'd like to have additional egress and connectivity as well?
Yeah, in general, so the town and most municipalities are looking for multiple connections, mostly for fire access. And so you have the main connection here, but we're looking at, I think, 40 homes, almost 40 homes on this side of the road here.
36, yep.
And so with that, the second access there provides for, emergency access in case there is a fire or some sort of issue on the site, that provides them that connectivity there. So it's just something that municipalities in general look for additional connectivity when possible.
Okay, so, maybe I don't wanna dominate the conversation, but maybe I can take it offline after the meeting with one of y'all to see what the process is
Sure.
for us to discuss this with the town of Lebanon, because that's a game changer for those 9 homes.
Certainly. Yes, ma'am.
My question is not Amanda Drive, how would that be affected? You have Amanda Drive on the far right. And then another position that said before that Amanda was going on the far, on your far right.
Yep.
No.
All the way to the top? Yeah.
If you go to the
Any
next
question
slide,
relative to here? Okay, yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me what will be happening with Amanda Drive? Will it remain the same? Is there an hour?
Yeah, so what you see here
I
is,
can't see it very clearly.
Okay.
Is there, do you
Well-
see Amanda Drive himself, right there?
meaning in the cul-de-sac.
No. Amanda Drive is up on the, it's north of that.
Yeah, you're talking about here,
When
north of that.
I had a list of questions.
Yeah, right here, it's right here, size back there. Nothing relative that's outside the boundaries of our development
And
is
it was right
changing
before this, you had a
anything.
list of questions and it said Amanda Drive was going to be what? That's what I'm asking, go back to that slide. You have a
Yep.
slide that says Amanda Drive on it?
No, I think it's,
There are a list of areas that you are concerned and it's.
and I think it's just based on the south.
There it is.
Yep.
Amanda Drive and Bonner Drive.
I think it's
So
just giving
would
general
you tell
sense
me
of
what
the impact to us.
Amanda's gonna be doing?
Yep, and we'll give you the better way to look at this here, Thomas, I'll let you walk through it as well, because nothing on, you wanna kind of walk through this with Amanda Drive, it's like, I
Yep.
think it's confusing.
Exactly, yeah. So with the traffic impact analysis, what we did is we obviously analyzed the accesses, we analyzed the intersections here. With that connection from Bonner Drive to Amanda Drive here, we did analyze both this intersection here as well as this intersection here in the traffic analysis. And based on our recommendations, based on our analysis, as well as the town and NCDOT's review, the current existing conditions do not warrant improvements at those locations.
Yes, and apologize, so really, again, going back to what I said before, anything that's within the development limits of what our project is, are the only improvements that are taking place.
So I'm just saying Amanda Drive's not gonna be touched then.
Nothing happens
Correct.
outside those limits.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Yes, I'm Martha Burgess, and I'm on Willow something about that, about how big it was, about how close it'll be to our properties. And if it fills up too much, will it drain into our property? We've had a problem with big storms with a little bit of drainage from the farm, so I would like to know about that.
Yeah, we can address that.
Yeah, we certainly address it. So there's two different areas that I think you're referencing that are both in blue.
That's
This
right.
area here, which we call a BNP, and this area over here as well. One of the things that we do is we ideally put them at low points, which we understand today relative to how it drains to that low point today. The difference is how it drains from a surface perspective, as opposed to kind of a pinpoint area, if you will. The whole intent is that the way we've already done our stormwater analysis, it gives us a general sense of where we're subdividing that drainage area. And in this case, there would be a high point that would drain down to where this basin is. It would then collect that water, substantiate that water, clean that water, and to your question, would allow it to dissipate. It would dissipate at the rate it does today, as it comes onto your property, and or at a slower rate than what it does today. But the whole intent is that it covers that acreage or that surface area relative to how we have this proposed of how it's subdivided between this basin here and this basin here.
In addition to that, there's a creek,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
woods, a wood line right there.
Yes, ma'am.
Would any of that pond go into the creek, or how will this work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think you're referencing this area here.
Yes.
And so as you can tell, what's happening right here is there's a culvert that allows those conditions to stay stagnant as they are today. And so what we do is we do what we call a hydrology study, just to make sure that we're not impacting the flows that would essentially go downstream, that would be anything different than what you're seeing today. So there is no change in that impact relative to when we go back in and we're putting what we call a culvert that allows the water to flow as it does today.
Will it have a fence around it? Will it?
Yeah, so in this, so correct, so typically what happens in this case, depending on how that culvert is, what that size is, so kind of the process, the way it works is that when we get kind of through this step where we are today, which is that sketch plan, we start designing and we do the engineering that gives us an understanding what the size of that culvert's gonna be. So depending on the size of that culvert and depending on the area that surrounds where that culvert is, there typically are standards that come back in that suggest that you have to put some type of guardrail so you're not impacting that area, and obviously for the safety of those folks that are traveling within that right of way. But, please.
Will there be a berm or anything at the back of the property there behind those homes?
Meaning in this area here?
Yeah, and the 6 homes that are placed right there.
Yeah, so
Going
probably
to
the
the
better.
left of the pond.
Yeah, probably the better, so this is probably a better understanding what that looks like. So everything you see around the boundary of this black line, this green indicates a buffer. That buffer at the very least is 50 feet. Now that 50 feet is outside the limits of where these lots are. And so you can imagine relative to where these homes sit, so these blue dots that you see here indicate a pool. And so we would have a home in front of that pool. So kind of give a general sense of kind of a proximity relative to the homes that reside in this adjacent neighborhood here. You would have 50, in addition to relative to where the home is, which is probably like another 150 to 200 feet before you even get to the property line of the adjacent neighborhood of separation between the two.
Does that include the pond?
That relative to where this is?
Yes.
Yeah, so this pond, I would say, if you scale it really to what you see here, that pond is about 50 feet from the property line, from the adjacent.
Not 150.
Yeah, correct, but it's existing conditions as it is today. Yes, ma'am.
We can discuss further too, open to discussion on screening that pond, fencing that pond, making sure that there's a softer buffer, or if your home is right there, that is definitely something we can have a conversation about. You've got my card, we're open to that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes?
Yeah, good question. Yes, sir.
Is that the existing pond that's on the property now?
This one here?
Yes.
This is the existing pond, yes, sir.
And will there be any changes to that whatsoever?
No, sir.
There's no drainage, I'm assuming there's not gonna be drainage into that.
We're not using it as a B&B.
Okay.
No, sir.
Where you're showing the pond reserved for stormwater management, that will be one that you build or is it one that's there?
one that we build. So there's two that we will build for stormwater management, or what we call BMPs, best management practices, which is the one that's the very far west side of the property, and then the other one we were identifying that's here to the east side of the property.
Okay, and what stormwater event is this supposed to hold back? Is it 100-year, 500-year storm event? How is that?
So we will be doing, it varies, but
So it varies, but the town is 2 and 10, we can't, 10 year, we cannot affect the pre and post, the 100-year, we have to contain in the pond.
A little bit louder, please.
The 2 and 10 year, we will, we have to meet pre-post, and then the 100-year, we will have to contain in the pond.
Okay, but it doesn't go as high as 500-year.
No.
no.
And, once you vacate the project, then, who maintains
Yeah,
that
that's a good question.
stormwater retention pond? Is it the town's responsibility, the county's?
It becomes the HOA's responsibility.
The HOA?
Yes, and what will happen in this case is, it really cycles itself from a phase 1 pond to a phase 2 condition. That phase 2 condition will then go to its permanent state. So during construction or development efforts, it will be in its phase 1, which is collecting sediment and disposing it at a cleaner state. And then when it gets to a point that we are 100% built out, where we have homes in place, and we have 100% stabilization, meaning grass, sod, what have you, in that case, it will go to its phase 2 condition, which is its final condition. It will then be, when we get a little further in our study with engineering, it will then either be a dry or a wet basin. And then, to your point, it then would be maintained in the responsibility of the HOA.
Okay. But there's no guarantee the HOA is really gonna keep it up. They could go defunct, stop collecting dues, and decide, well, we just don't wanna do this anymore.
So, kind of describe what that looks like for toll, and I think in generalities, how that process works. So typically what happens in this case is toll, we are the declarant for the life of the development until we actually have finished all construction. So from the standpoint of once construction is finished, we then will start creating a liaison board, probably similar like your development. We will then have to transfer responsibility from toll as being the declarant to the HOA, because they're now built out and have 45 individuals residing in their home sites. At that point, there will be bylaws and rules that will then state that they are responsible for multiple different things. One of those being the maintaining of these basins. So there will definitely be rules, regulations, which is applicable to most developments that speak to that responsibility.
Can the adjacent developers, anybody who's neighboring them and be affected, those HOAs should get a copy if this is finalized, because it will affect the neighboring. So I think it shouldn't be just that neighborhood, we should know what's in it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, it's a recorded document, it is a public document. We're more than happy to share information. The way it works, so you guys have a general sense is, so obviously we have to be a little bit further into our due diligence. Once we get a little bit further into due diligence, we then understand the different elements that we want to put into those bylaws and those CCNRs. And that language, at that point in time, when we understand where we are with the final plan, we then start to inundate, again, this document or these two documents. At that point in time, it then becomes public record because it's recorded. And so it's a recorded document, that's a public document, but for the sake of us going through and obviously the partnership between the adjacent neighborhoods, more than happy to share the document when we get to that point.
I can't see from back here,
Yeah.
the large green area adjacent to the pond, what is that?
This area here.
Yes.
Yeah, so one of the conditions that, the town of Blaington has is anywhere that you have where you have a stream impact, which we described that in two different places. We talked about this one earlier, and we also have an area right here that resides as a floodplain, so both are identified as floodplains. The rules that they have in state with the town of Weddington is that we need to make sure that there is at least a 100-foot buffer that separates between where the center line of that stream is, and that's what this shows here. It's a floodplain with a 100-foot buffer from the center line of both streams.
And one other question, could you just expand on the sewage situation?
Yeah, sure, and I think the better thing to do is, go to this document. So this is our septic system evaluation. So what you see here is, we're taking two different approaches. So we've gone out and we've done several different field evaluations. Those field evaluations have come back and it's identified that we have suitable soils that will support septic for each individual lot. So you can imagine in this case and kind of depict what these, it's kind of hard to see, but the kind of yellowish brown, if you will, shows where those suitable soils are. And then within that, it gives you a general sense based on the pink and the yellow of what that square footage allowance is that makes up that brown or yellow, or tannish color, if you will. So in this case, if it's pink, it's 10,000 square feet of suitable soils. In this case, if it's 16,000, it's, again, additional suitable soils, but we're approaching it in two different methods. If it's 16,000 square feet, it would be your typical conventional system. If it's relative to 10,000, it's an engineered system. That's how that's identified. But each individual system is where we've identified the septic would be on these lots here. So,
As far as potable water, is that gonna be wells or is it gonna tie in? How's that gonna work?
we are gonna tie in. So there's water along Waits and Matthews Road and we'll tie to that. Yes, sir.
From the bottom left-hand corner, I see that there's common area in green. Is that a lot that sticks out like an arrow point, or is that
That's
still
a
common
football.
area?
It's common open space, or COS, is as we call it. So I think we showed it on this here, so this gives you a better depiction of kind of what that looks like. So anything that's green, that's kind of outside the lot, would be identified as common open space. And then from total between the east and the west side of the two parcels, the total is the 33.2 acres that makes up common open space. Again, total site is 94, 33.2 makes up common open space of those 94 acres.
Yes, ma'am, right here in front.
Is there a print, is there a print out of that picture right there?
I have one in my bag. I'm happy to allow you to take it home with you. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, in the back.
Will you do any work to stabilize the dam on that pond? Because where you're talking about common area is lowland swamp, it's drainage area, it's a wetland.
You're
So
talking
that
this
dam
area,
with
this
the pond
existing
right
pond?
there, will it need any mitigation to stabilize that?
Yeah, talking about the existing pond today, this here, and relative to the farm pond that exists today. Yeah, so for us, it's kind of, if you want to call it a feature that we want to keep. We definitely want to salvage the integrity of the condition it is today. It's not jurisdictional, so it's not going through dam safety or any type of those reviews. But yes, we will then go back in and make sure we're salvaging the conditions and probably making the conditions better today, because for us, it's more of an aesthetic value that we want to make sure that we keep that integrity.
You know, for the neighbors of Willow Oaks, if you have a breach in that dam, that's gonna flood that direction on those lots.
Yeah, so I think, again, from the basis of this being like a jurisdictional dam or anything from that standpoint, I don't think it's gonna be anything different than what we see today, because we're not treating this as being any type of stormwater system. So how it flows and drains today is what is still contained in that same integrity. And going back, as I said before, there is a stream that then obviously it falls soup downstream, and then there is a buffer that is required to stay in place, and that buffer is 100 feet relative to that center line.
Here, blue shirt in the front here.
Yeah, so I think we were just talking about this area, but on the left side, right under where it cuts in right there, on the opposite side of the stormwater pond there. It's yellow in this picture, it's green in the other one. So what is that area right there?
Yep. Meaning on this last lot here?
Yeah, right under the, yeah, right there.
Yellow
Here.
bear was asking.
Yep. Yep, so for us, again, going back in, I think the better slide to look at is, it's gonna be this. I think what this is gonna equate to, this is the better imagery that gives you a general sense of where that septic is. This is the viable soil. This maintains its common open space.
Okay, but what does that mean then? You can't build on it, it's trees, it's actually.
I mean, this area here.
Yep.
Because of the zoning, we do have the opportunity to go ahead and move forward if we so choose. And I guess, let me do this, give you another imagery that kind of gives you a general sense of existing conditions, so you can understand what it looks like. Which is probably not the best picture, but, it's kind of hard to see. So kind of going back to what you're saying, I was trying to get to this picture because what you see are kind of these little faint aerials here. Those faint aerials describe existing trees. And so there's not a lot of trees that are on this site to begin with. But to answer your question, it would be common open space. The intent is to keep, we'll look at the grading and how these correlate back to the final engineering and the grading that we do. But the intent is to try to keep as many trees as we can. Now, it's not subject to the heritage ordinance that the town has.
So there, it sounds like you're saying there's no requirement to keep the trees, they can all be cleared out. is what you're saying.
Yes, but again, the approach for us is, our focus is only within the right of way. So when we go in and we do development, we're focusing on just putting the streets and the wet utilities and the wet utilities and the dry utilities in place. Anything that's outside of this proposed, let's call it right of way, which is the red line, we from a development effort would not clear those. We would then come back in individually on each lot, clear, grade accordingly, and try to salvage as many trees as we can relative to where the house sits.
So probably keep the existing trees, and then where trees didn't exist, maybe it just becomes a grassy area.
That's correct, exactly. And really the intent behind this approach is, we want to make sure that, again, we can keep that integrity. Now, be mindful, this development doesn't have a lot of trees that exist today, but where we know that we can afford to keep trees, we want to definitely take that approach. And this approach gives us that opportunity.
Yeah, I'm just trying to clarify, it sounds like you're saying that's the quote-unquote intent, they can clear it out though, under the current plan.
Well, on the current plan, we would not, because essentially we're staying within these boundaries here.
Okay, so the current plan
And
doesn't
truly,
contemplate clearing out trees. I'm
No.
sorry.
This
Yes, sir.
area
No,
here
sir.
that you were talking about,
Yeah.
there's no home site there, there's no
Right.
future of development there. Now, we may have to clear up to a certain point to build that road, but there is no intent to build a home there. Yes, trees could come down, but my best guess is we're gonna keep most of those trees.
The wetland area on there, is that protected for what that's worth?
It is. So one of the things that we do when we go through due diligence, we obviously do a wetland study that gives us a general sense, if you all environmental species, the whole nine. So that evaluation has been done, but yes, it falls within that approval of the permit.
All right, I'm gonna gravitate to someone in the back. Yes, sir, red shirt, caller.
When you talk about buffer zone, what exactly is buffer? Are you leaving what's there, or are you building a berm? What, or do you plan, what is your definition here would be the buffer zone?
Yeah, for us, we want to make sure that there really is no doesn't identify as being an undisturbed buffer, but we want to approach it as being an undisturbed buffer. And great question, where we would want to go back in, if there's not trees, we would look at conditions to see if it makes sense to either add some additional trees, but we want to make sure in the existing conditions today that we're not going in and disturbing within that 50 feet.
One more in the back. Yes, ma'am.
So who is responsible for that? That 50 feet? Who's responsible? We're gonna back up to
Sure.
this. So who's responsible for?
Making sure that we're not encroaching into that 50 feet, is that the question?
Right, so from my fence to, 50 feet, and then that's when the lot starts, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So between my fence and that lot starting, who's responsible for that 50 feet?
Yeah, the 50 feet would be on our property, we would be responsible for that buffer. What would happen in this case is, that 50 feet is under the responsibility initially with toll, because we're the ductwork. When it transfers over to the HOA, they will be responsible for maintaining, or whatever impacts that would happen in that area, they would be the responsible party. So initially toll, until 100% built out, and then responsibility is transferred over to the HOA.
Quick one, from the back, so going back to the water, you talked about tie-in, so does that mean that these properties are going to use city water?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct, yes, sir.
So they are not going to have their own wells?
No, sir,
Okay.
no, sir.
Yes, sir.
specifically on lot 40, the foot at the bottom of the parcel on the left, or the west side, yep.
Okay.
So right now, we have 250 feet of woods behind our house, and we already have quite a bit of runoff. We have a water problem already. If you take 200 feet up to 250 feet of woods away, we're gonna get flooded. Will that retention pond take that into account?
Yeah, so, kind of go back to explain the process. We'll have a better understanding of how and we're directing that water as we further into the engineering of it. I think the affordability with lot 40, it happens to be our biggest home site that we have. I think the affordability that we have there is that because there's so much opportunity to surface drain it, we'll be utilizing that. In addition to the way this thing will show from an engineering standpoint, it will have to obviously drain to that of what that applicable BMP or stormwater management pond is. But the affordability on that particular lot is, as the approach we talked about before, the area that, in this case, that would be potentially cleared would be for the septic. And then, because we know we have a heritage tree, we want to salvage that heritage tree and then not do really any disturbance beyond that. So that lot affords a lot of surface area on top of, when we get to the engineering, it will be designed obviously to go to that applicable BMP.
Yes, purple shirt, go ahead.
Thank you. Can you go back to the slide with the renderings, please?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
And I assume you're
Yes.
elevation wise? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So what is the proposed price point for the homes?
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
More now.
homes at the end of the day in this community will be 1.5,
1.5.
roughly to higher than that, depending on the
Okay.
optionality of the selections that the homeowner chooses.
And will the homes look similar to this rendering? So for
That's the
instance,
intent.
I'm thinking of Enclave, I know you spoke to many.
Actually, yep.
Yes, I know that you spoke to 225 different home types, but you look at Enclave and, you know.
Yeah, totally
they're-
recognize
they're-
that Enclave of
They're
actually-
all white homes.
they're all the same.
There's no brick, there's no stone.
Yes,
Are you
understand,
planning to use more brick and more stone to?
so what
fit
Toll
into the
Brothers will
community?
do in the future, hopefully this community, we will require elevation change. So,
Okay.
our sales team will be given a map on the lots and will give the homeowner that comes in, hey, you have elevation A, B, or C
Okay.
with these color choices, and they cannot be consistent with your neighbors, nor can they be consistent with across the street. And we can set that tone and make sure that actually doesn't happen.
Okay, and I can't see from back here, what kind of materials are you using on the exterior and what's most?
And this home is a brick home.
Okay.
This home is actually also brick, it's a painted gray tone brick, with some hardy elements.
And is that the
as well.
expectation we should have for the neighborhood?
Yes,
Yep.
these two homes are the intent for the community.
Okay, thank you. Just one
Oh,
last
hold
question.
on, can I jump to the back, the gentleman with black shirt? Go ahead.
So switching gears a little bit, excuse me, but does Toll Brothers have any interaction or provide any data to either like the North Carolina Department of Education or the Union County School District with regards to the impact that this would have? And this is not for this in general, but just so I'm educating myself on the process and what the different rules are. But obviously concerned about the impact on public schools that are
Yep.
already over capacity and what that looks like.
We have not had any interaction that I'm aware of with Union County Public Schools at this point in time. That is something that I can reach out and try to get some capacity information regarding the schools that we'd be assigned to. But I can tell you with 45 home sites, our impact is going to be very low.
So the same question goes for our traffic here. The biggest concerns I think that we all have living in this area is the congestion of our schools. We are overtaxed, we're already in containers, and traffic coming into that circle. 45 homes doesn't sound a lot to you guys in the broad scheme of things, but I think for us, we're looking for a way to talk to for you to hear us, but this is what we're gonna say to our township. The reason we say, Toll Brothers makes a beautiful home, we all wanna see beautiful homes. People that live closer, they have concerns, but for the bigger part of the community, you're gonna get your resistance about just being here.
Yeah, sure.
Right? That absorption of people, children.
Sure. Yeah, and I think both great questions. I think, kind of touch base on both those questions, two things play into account. when the town of Weddington is going back and doing their comprehensive plan, they've obviously already have applicable zones for this site. That site is predicated based on a certain amount of yield that is potentially set for this site. So it's already understood that there's intended additional traffic. What we've done in this case is that we've taken this as a by right condition, meaning that we have set the condition based on what they have proposed this to be, which are set for the relative to about acre lots is what this is. We've almost exceeded that expectation of going a little bit bigger, but each lot is an acre, so we're doing what's kind of proposed. So kind of going back in and touch base on the school system, what they do is they go back and they evaluate this relative to, we know what the comprehensive plan shows today, and we know what's potentially going to be slated, because it's a vacant parcel today that will potentially become what we're proposing. So there's already some insight that's already done. I would tell you the conversation might be a little bit different if we were looking to go back in and do something that was exceeding by right conditions, but we're adhering to what's been proposed.
Is that to say, when you say by right, is that to set expectations, to say that this train has left the station and it's gonna happen regardless of what the community says about it?
No, that's not the case. So
Okay.
it's two things. Really, the intent is to have this meeting so we can get good feedback from you guys. We take that feedback and we want to make sure that if we can, we want to inundate it into what we're proposing today. The other condition that happens within Weddington is any subdivision that exceeds 6 lots becomes a conditional rezoning. So we have to go through the public hearings to get the applicable approvals to be able to move forward. So those are conversations that will be with planning board as well as with council. And obviously we exceed the 6 lots here.
Yes, ma'am, orange shirt in the back.
Does Toll Brothers already own property or just an option?
No, we do not own the property. Yes, all the way in back.
A question about the timing, from when you guys first break ground, what's the anticipated timeline? And are you guys gonna be starting in one section and working your way over? How does that kind of all map out?
Great question. It's our intent that it would take relative about 12 months to develop this site. We will develop it all in one. Again, our approach is that we will develop it based on just doing right of way to right of way. So relative about 12 months, once we get through all the applicable approvals.
And we still have to go through the process in the town of Weddington. So we've got, planning board, town council meetings. I would anticipate that is, a 6-month process from where we are today. In addition to that timeline for development itself, model home would go up. You're looking at, a 2027 activity in the community. Really, it's gonna take the rest of this year into 26, and then we would be active after that if we were to proceed and move forward. Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
Question, when you start dividing the road, you mentioned that there'll be a
Great question.
third lane, both sides, so, because the morning traffic is already, it's a very narrow road with not even sides.
Right.
So, but how do you plan to solve it? You need to bring in equipment, there'll be workers coming every day. So how do you normally, solve that? Obviously, we understand there's more congestion, but do you broaden the road first, or how do you start?
Yeah, great question. So we try to do it concurrent with each other, meaning that we know we have development that's on what we call the infill portion of the development, where you see the red lines. So we try to go ahead and do we call them off-site improvements, as far as putting that turn lane in and putting the ingress, egress in. So we'll have a crew that focuses on that, while we have a crew that will be focusing on the interior at the same time. So we want to make sure that that frontage can get done as early as possible for 2 different reasons. One, we want to make sure that, again, those improvements are put in place early. On top of that, we want to go ahead and start putting in our marketing window, meaning some of that landscaping kind of proposed 100-foot area that we were talking about, that buffer on both sides of the street. We want to go ahead and bring that marketing window just in just as quick as possible, which is all predicated based on putting those off-site improvements in place.
And is it possible to do it that, obviously, there will be road closure, and we really don't have much alternative, the neighborhood before and after. There is no cut-through roads here, so the only way would be to go all around, Beulah Church, down to Potter, to go, and those roads are already congested too.
Yep.
So when you do those roads, can it be at least off school time, but at least less traffic?
We can we can definitely consider that and understand how that correlates back to timing on our end. There will be definitely, it won't be shut down. It will be just at a point where there'll be traffic control. So what happens is when you go back in and you do the TIA study, there's a traffic control plan that correlates back to that. That will also follow suit with our engineer plans. That will then give a general sense of how the traffic can flow during those conditions.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I had a question about the roads that are in the community that you're developing. Would those roads have curbs and storm drains in the roads? And would those storm drains lead to the storm ponds?
Yes.
They would.
Yes.
It's a great question.
And an easy answer. Yes, sir.
Just two parts to it. Would these homes be on slab or crawl? Do you have an intent on that yet? And then I know Weddington has recently updated the cul-de-sac lengths. Do these longer cul-de-sacs comply with the new ordinance?
That's a great question. They do, so one of the feedback I think we got this new sketch plan was we went back and looked at block lengths and they adhere to what the new standard is. I'm sorry, your second question, your first question?
Slab versus crawl.
Crawl spaces.
Okay.
All homes actually crawl spaces.
Yes, sir.
What's the process moving forward? I have a brilliant idea in the middle of the night. How do I touch base with your team and say, oh, I'm glad you called? As opposed to my wife saying, you guys are rats. You know, we'll be able to support. What's the process of getting
My business card is right there on that podium. Please take it. Understand that there's probably gonna be follow-up questions or something you just forgot to ask. I may not know the answer right away, but I will get it for you, so you've got my number and my email.
And just want to preface this as well. We know this is kind of the start of the process, which we know it's going to take us a little bit of time to get there. We know if it is able to get to the next steps where we get through the public hearings, then we get through the engineering. Once we get through engineering, once we get through that piece of it, we have to develop it as I described before, which is 12 months. At that point in time, same contacts. We would ask you guys, we want to be partners in this. More than welcome to pick the phone up, give us a call, we want to be good neighbors.
So will everyone who got notice of this meeting get notice of the other public hearings?
Rick, remind me of how that works. Publication does go out for all those public meetings.
So, this is a community meeting. This is hosted by the applicant, has nothing to do with the town. They just have to verify that they had this meeting, and I just happen to be here to verify it. Those are notices that are sent to adjacent property owners within a certain radius. There will be several more public hearings or community meetings regarding this, including a presentation to town council and an actual hearing in front of the planning board. The last vote that's on this proposal is a public hearing which is advertised in the newspaper and sent to a much larger radius of folks per state statutes. So maybe not for the town council meeting, you may not get a mailer for that, or even the planning board, that will be public information on our website. But the last meeting will have a sign that's posted on the property, which is yellow, and mailing sent to all adjacent property owners.
Is that one property owner that owns that whole 94 acres, or is it a couple, or?
It's a family.
And what happens if, you guys just don't get things through the town council or the county or whatever? Are you willing to make adjustments, or you're only gonna put so much money in this and then walk away?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things is that we want to take the time to due diligence. It's our intent to develop it. So if there's changes that are feasible for us to keep how we underwrite this within how we focus from a business perspective, yes. We're open to the changes. When it gets to a point that unfortunately it's not feasible, then we'd have to look at other options. But going back to how we talked about before, the way this works, obviously, just without getting too far in the conversation, is the interest with the seller is still under his control. We're obviously under contract with him to try to get through these different steps. But has not changed ownerships until we get through those steps.
Yes, sir.
You touched on trees briefly, and I know there's not a lot of trees affected in our property, but I've seen Toll Brothers homes are beautiful and well landscaped. Is there any intent for Toll Brothers to actually bring in trees to kind of flesh out the property? There's a development right now off Newtown Road, which is horrible. There's not a tree in sight, everything got taken out. And the lots are so, they're not even lots, they're very close together. But there's no place to put trees.
Sure.
So what's the philosophy? Just replacing or bringing in new, just to make it look, fits as a neighborhood?
Yeah, and I think it's a great question. Obviously, as we get further into this, we go back in from our operations team, and they start putting together a plan that's applicable to this development. We definitely want, one of the things that our approach today, as I talked about before, being the right of way to right of way, we want to sustain as much as we can and kind of keep that fill. I can tell you just from past experience, like specific to putting in like landscape along the frontage, our approach is to go with something that kind of looks like it's been there for a while, meaning that we're looking for a larger caliber size. So if it's a 6-inch caliber tree, which is a nominal caliber tree is about 2 inches, we want to go with something that has a substantial canopy from the existing. So, you know, can't say that that's 100% of our approach as we, again, from what the lot approach is, but that's the emphasis what we want to play on is to try to, where we have the opportunity to put larger caliber trees or enhancements, we'll definitely have those, some of those throughout the development.
I'll just add, the consumer that we serve in general really values established trees. We actually do get a benefit from having them. So as you know, developers go in and clear, we really do try to preserve as much as we can because there is a value to keeping it.
Yeah, I was thinking more to the ways that the streets, because on the property, I mean, the trees in the back of the lot, that's nice.
Right.
Just the aesthetics of driving down a barren street.
Yep.
I live on Greenbrook, it used to be called the Tree of Pines. The Street of Pines because they were just beautiful white pines.
Right, right. So one thing that will be required, there'll be a street tree plan that we'll have to adhere to the ordinances that of what the town has. So it will not be where if we've gone back in and even if there was a tree that they were using for utility purposes or what have you, we would still have to adhere to the town's ordinance for the street tree plan.
What's the price range of the houses that you're planning to put down there?
So the price point?
Just the price range.
Yeah, so I think Marty touched base on that. Do you want to expand on that again?
Yeah, we project homes here to be from $1.5 million and up, depending on the optionality and what consumers will put into the home. So if they add a lot of features in their bathrooms, in their kitchens, we expect those home prices to be at that level.
0.5 and up. They will have more than one house in their household for sure.
And we can hang around if you guys have individual questions, please come up. But I think I'm kind of starting to see the hands slow down. Robert and I can tag team